Hey guys, Smith here from Minute Maintenance. Now in a couple of days, me and a bunch of friends, we're going to load up in the F-150 and we're going to take a weekend trip. It's going to be a bit of a 4-hour drive in one direction. Now the last thing I possibly want on a trip like that, loaded up with a bunch of friends and all their gear, is for the car to break down on the side of the road, for us to get stranded in some town paying for a tow bill, or for somebody else to come and put their hands and wrench on my vehicle for me. So there's a couple things I like to knock out before I take any long road trip. Just driving around town, these are things that's good for you as well, but if you're taking a really long road trip, this is something you want to look into to make sure your vehicle gives you the most reliability possible, the best gas mileage possible, and to make sure they give you that peace of mind that everything's going to be okay. So we're going to knock out the top 10 that I like to do to a vehicle before I take a road trip. Stick with me, we'll get through these together. Alright guys, number one, and possibly the most overlooked, is tire pressure. Now a lot of people, they don't mess with their tire pressure unless they actually see if it looks flat. Now I don't know about you, but I can't tell how much PSI is sitting inside that tire. It looks round to me, it might be good, but the best thing you want to do is just go to the auto parts store, spend $1, $1.50 and get yourself a tire pressure gauge, and then look on the outside of your tire here, right along the rim. There's a bunch of numbers, a bunch of different letters. Take the time, depending on the rotation of the tire where it's located, you can look around and you can see that right over here it says that the max PSI for my particular tire is 65. So let's go ahead and put our tire gauge on, and all we do is we take the valve stem cover off, just like we're checking our bicycle, pumping up air. We go ahead and push that on there, and what's she say for us? And there we go. Now this particular tire gauge only goes up to 50. It's one that I use for my Expedition, but she was serious about being maxed out. She maxed herself out, so I know I'm well above that 50 in the 60 range because she went ahead and pegged herself. If you're low, it might have only stopped right there. And then you read that number and you add air or you take air away accordingly. So that's the first thing I like to do to all 4 tires. That's number one. Check your tire pressure. It'll give you better gas mileage. It'll make the truck or vehicle drive a lot better for you, make it more reliable, make it more sturdy for you. So check your tire pressure. All right. Number 2. Come over here to your air filter, guys. Wherever your air filter is located in your vehicle, normally it's on the driver's side. Let's go ahead and open her up. And we want to check our air filter to make sure that the vehicle is breathing right. Now, if you're running a marathon or even around the block, if you can't breathe right, you're not going to be able to run very well, very fast, very far, be very efficient. Neither can your vehicle. So you always want to pull out the air filter and you want to look her over, see what she looks like, see what kind of discoloration you got going on, what kind of debris you got in there. Ooh, let's go ahead and take the vacuum and we'll go ahead and clean out those walnuts a little bit, because you're going to suck things in, because that's how it gets air. It sucks things in through the fender, and we're going to get some things in there, so we'll go ahead and get that cleaned out. We're going to get that put back together. Now, number 3 on the list that I like to check when it comes to road trips is you want to check your coolant. Right here. Now, if the car's been off, there's 2 different levels that your coolant tells you about. You got the cold fill range, which is if the car is off. And you got the warm fill range down here. Now I'm well within that cool fill range, as you guys can see right there. I am well within that, so we're good to go. But you always want to check your coolant, not just to make sure it's in the right range, at the right temperature, but also to make sure that the color looks good, and that looks factory new, so we're good to go on that. Number 4, you want to check your brake fluid. If you don't have enough fluid in there to create that hydraulic pressure, your brakes aren't going to work right. Now you can see right here, there's a minimum line and there's a maximum line, just like on all the other ones, and we're almost at that maximum line. So we're well within that needed range for the brakes to function properly. So you want to make sure that looks good. You also want to make sure the color looks good, but don't spend too much time with the cap off, because take a quick little peek in there. Everything looks nice to me, all right, because it does absorb moisture, so don't leave that cap off for too long. Number 5, guys, is power steering. And again, we got a maximum and a minimum, and I'm right at that minimum line. So I'm going to go ahead and put some more power steering fluid in her to get her where she wants to be. That way I have the best control of the vehicle possible when I'm on the road. Right there, perfect. That's all she took, and now she's maxed out. That way she's nice and lubricated. I get the best control when I'm driving, and I don't burn out my power steering pump by having too low fluid. Alright guys, number 6, and possibly the most important, is checking your oil. Now normally your oil is going to be indicated, your oil dipstick is going to be indicated by a bright yellow dipstick. Now if you have an aftermarket dipstick or a really old vehicle, it might not be colored yellow. Just make sure you figure out which one's your oil. You can tell that by looking it up online, looking at your service manual, which is using a little common sense. You pull up the dipstick. Now you only check your oil when the engine is cold. Again, check the oil when the engine is cold and the vehicle is parked on a nice level area. You get yourself a clean rag, you run it off, you go ahead and you check that clean rag for any discoloration, for any shiny metal bits that indicate like we got some grinding going on in there, and to check the color as well. Now that's a nice clean color because I recently had the oil changed. If it's a pitch black, well, you might want to go ahead and change your oil before you take that road trip, because it's not going to cool the engine as good as it is. So the darker it is, the older it is, the less ability it has to lubricate and cool the engine. So we stick it back in. This is going to be our first legit check. Let's go ahead and look that over, and we are well within the fill hash marks there. Clean her off just to be doubly safe. Let's go and check her again. You want to be within the hash marks. You don't want to be over full. You certainly don't want to be under full. You want to be within that hash mark level. And we'll check her for a second time. And there she is, plenty of oil within the hash mark. So she is good to go. Now, number 7 is a little difficult to do on this particular vehicle because Ford, on a lot of the vehicles, has a sealed transmission. So a lot of vehicles will have a secondary dipstick. Sometimes it's colored orange, sometimes it's different colored. But it's not going to be the same color as the yellow for your oil, and that's going to be for your transmission fluid. Now, that's a dipstick for your transmission fluid, and that's very important to check. And you check your transmission fluid after the car has been hot. So again, oil you check when you're cold, which is number 6 on our list. Number 7 on our list is transmission fluid. You want to check that fluid with the dipstick when the engine is hot. You've been driving it. You want it to be hot. Generally, you want the vehicle to be in neutral, so make sure you have someone you trust in the vehicle. Put the vehicle in neutral, put the parking brake on, put the foot on the regular brake as well, just for a fail-safe. And that way you can get up here under the hood, pull the dipstick, and do the same process. You're going to get a clean rag. You're going to check for any discoloration, any metal shards, any shiny flecks that are inside the transmission fluid that'll indicate to you that, hey, something's going awry here. It's grinding. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. Make sure it's a nice, decent color. If it's too dark, you'll be able to tell, guys. If it's too dark and looks gross, if you wouldn't want that being in your vehicle, you might want to think about getting that changed. If it's too low, top it off. If it's too high, well, we'll have to figure that out as well. But make sure you have enough transmission fluid in your vehicle. On this sealed unit, I'm unable to check it right now. I'd have to drive the vehicle, then crawl underneath and look up actually at the transmission from my back and reach up in there and pull out a small 6-inch long dipstick, which is right next to the exhaust. So thank you for that, Ford. I love your vehicles, but what a horrific design you did for me. And those are supposed to be not checked as often, so that's why they make it sealed. But regardless, that's something you want to check. I recently did a transmission flush in the vehicle, so I know I'm good there. Let's move on to number 8. And number 8 takes us inside the vehicle. You want to make sure it's clean, guys. Nothing ruins a road trip. Nothing ruins daily driving like having a cluttered vehicle. You make sure that it's nice and clean, that it's vacuumed out. If you have dogs in here, there's not dog hair floating everywhere. It's going to get in people's drinks and people's food as you're driving. You want to make sure that you don't have random books and garbage and papers. Like, what do we got here? We got a napkin. We'll throw that away. Just go ahead and get in there, vacuum if you have to. Look for any debris, anything that you can get rid of that's not just gonna be taking up space, because the more room you got, the more comfortable you got, the better it is on the inside. Go ahead and wipe it down while you're at it. A clean vehicle is a happy vehicle. Number 9, following the same concept, wash the vehicle. All right, everybody likes a nice clean vehicle. When they're rolling up, when they're putting everything inside, they're not getting their luggage all dirty and dusty. You want to make sure the vehicle is nice and clean. All right, you'll feel better about yourself. The vehicle will look better. You'll catch the eyes of some pretty ladies as you're driving down the road. You'll have yourself a good time. So make sure the inside's clean for your comfort. Make sure the outside's clean as well. All right, guys, number 10 on our list is to drive the vehicle. Now, if you haven't gone on any long road trips, the last thing you want is to find out that something is wrong with your vehicle, that it can't keep up with the heat, that it can't keep up with the constant driving. It's like going from a sprint to running a marathon. Yeah, most people can run half a block, 20 feet, 10 feet at a hard pace and they'll be okay. But can you do that for an extended period of time? Can you push that out to a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles? Same thing applies to a vehicle. If you're only using it as a daily driver and you haven't gone on any long trips, maybe think about taking a short one. Take the old lady out to a restaurant an hour away. Go for a nice drive, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the beautiful weather, go somewhere scenic. Mix in road standard traffic with in-town driving, with stop-and-go traffic to simulate if you're in a big city and you got to stop and go all the time. It's really going to put a lot of strain on your brakes and the heating and cooling of the vehicle. And make sure you get some highway miles in where you're driving straight and consistent. Look for any vibrations. Look for any weird noises. It helps if you're driving on a bridge. You can roll down the windows. The sounds and vibrations will echo off the sides of the bridge. Or same thing if you're driving in town and there's a wall of parked cars on both sides. Roll down the windows. The sounds are going to echo. You'll hear any strange sounds, any ticking, any clicking, any weird metal sounding noises. Like, hey, that's something of concern. Let's take care of that now before we go on this road trip, because if we got to swap out vehicles, it's better to figure out any problems we have with the vehicle operating right now while we're still at our home base as opposed to on the road. And so that's all the 10 things that I like to do before a vehicle, before I go on any long road trip. Check the tires, check the air filter, check the coolant, check the brake fluid, check the power steering fluid, check the oil, check the transmission fluid if you have access to it. vacuum it out, get a nice car wash, and then drive the vehicle. Drive around town, drive on the highway, make sure that everything's gonna function the way you want, because some things you don't know are going wrong unless you're actually behind the wheel operating at high speeds and low speeds as well. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. Hope you guys can knock all these out. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to drop those below. If you have any suggestions for me for other things you'd like to do on your vehicles before you go on a road trip, let me know. And I hope you guys take a minute out of your day. As always, guys, let's do some maintenance.